Getting to and landing on the moon may have been one of mankind's greatest accomplishments, but the astronauts who reached it didn't leave God out of the picture.
Historian William Federer points to the Apollo 11 moonwalkers.
Before they get out of the lunar module, they have a moment of silence, and Buzz Aldrin celebrates communion. He pours the grape juice in 1/6 gravity, and it does a slow little circle, and he reads John 15, I'm the vine, you are the branches, and he takes bread that was partly consumed at the communion service before he launched. He saved a piece of the bread, and he celebrated communion. So the first items that were consumed on the moon was communion.
The world didn't hear it because a famous atheist had given NASA grief over Apollo 8 astronauts publicly reading from the Bible.
Madalyn Murray O'Hair had threatened to sue because Apollo 8 had mentioned God. They read from the book of Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
As Apollo 11 headed back to Earth, Buzz Aldrin said this to a listening world.
Reflecting on the events of the past several days, a verse from Psalms comes to mind. When I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, and the moon and the stars, which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him?
9 months later, when an accident on board Apollo 13 might have doomed its 3 astronauts to die in space, much of the planet turned to God.
President Nixon calls the nation to pray. And they have prayer on the Chicago Board of Trade and the Vatican and the Wailing Wall all around the world.
Lord, your astronauts will come back safe.
Apollo, the recovery, over. For the one flight at this time, the three chutes are displaced in the water.
The exploration of space has been hazardous adventure. The voyage of Apollo 13 dramatized its risks.
With the crew alive and back on Earth, mankind thanked God.
President Nixon has a national day of Thanksgiving to celebrate this.
One of the last Apollo flights featured Mission Control's Charles Duke getting to walk on the moon. He spoke of it later.
I used to think that, I'm paraphrasing, going to the moon would be the greatest achievement. He says, but my walk with Jesus is more memorable because it's an everyday affair. So just a fascinating faith that Charles Duke had, plus all the astronauts. Jim Irwin became, Apollo 15 became an evangelical minister, and Apollo 14 left a microfilm copy of the King James Bible on the moon.
It's interesting how many of those men who flew far into the heavens couldn't get the God of heaven out of their thoughts. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.